I have somewhat of a tradition I do this time of year, and I'm sure it's nothing unusual. I'm sure you all do it too. And as Halloween gets closer, you watch your favorite horror movies, right? And the great thing, though, is the stuff that I like 80s slasher films. We're talking like the Friday the 13th, the Hellraisers, the Halloweens. And the great thing about it is they have so many movies in their lineup that it's basically a massive marathon fest for me for the rest of the month. And anyone who's a fan of those movies knows that even though not all the movies might be great or might hold up to the original, they're still kind of fun to watch if you're in the right mood, even the ones that are really kind of bad. But the series I wanted to talk about here, to kind of segue into our main topic, is this one. The Nightmare on Elm Street series. If you haven't heard of this, I strongly recommend you do a Wikipedia search, my friend. So, this is the Nightmare on Elm Street series. It began in 1984, and had Freddy Krueger as the main antagonist, the finger knife guy, if you really don't know what I'm talking about here. And this is a particular movie that was released. This is the 7th one in the series. Some fans consider it, part of the original series. Some don't, as like a standalone. This is Wes Craven's New Nightmare. This was released in 1994, and it's really the first horror movie that I've come across, and I'm pretty sure it's the only one that's the first one's ever done this. I might be wrong on this, but my research leads me to this is the first. This is the first horror movie that really embraces the idea of self-awareness. And I'm sure you could quote a bunch of movies that, have come out. Probably Cabin in the Woods is the most recent one that has this idea like, oh, everyone knows it's a horror movie, it's kind of fun, ha ha ha. But, and Scream as well, that's the other popular one. In fact, this movie actually spawned Scream the next year. But Wes Craven's New Nightmare, the actors in the movie are all playing themselves. Robert Englund, who plays Freddy Krueger in the original Nightmare series, plays himself in these movies. Even Wes Craven himself plays himself. And they reference the other, movies in the series. And this one, New Line Cinemas is an actual filming location, like a set for this. And I'm not going to spoil the entire movie, but the basic concept is that Freddy Krueger is basically literally breaking the fourth wall. And he's making the move to go from this series to the physical world. And that is it's a great idea that the nightmares that we watch on TV that we grew up with, the idea that them coming real, it's simply terrifying. And with that being said, we're now going to talk about Slenderman. Slenderman, Slenderman, all the children try to run. Slenderman, Slenderman, to him it's part of the... Okay, I'm sorry, had to do it. Sorry, it's Halloween, it's October, had to do it. Sorry if everyone done peeing their pants, okay? There's probably that one guy out there that's gonna leave a comment that's gonna be like, I wasn't scared, you just lame, whatever. Okay, so, Slendy, talking about Slendy here. So, Freddy Krueger in this series was a fictional character that was created for the sole purpose of these nightmare movies, and then, they made a movie where he was coming into reality. But the thing is, we don't need to rely on Hollywood to create our boogeymen anymore. We can do it ourselves. We have the internet. Using the internet, I believe it was in 2009, and I think it was on a forum in 4chan or some forum site somewhere. I think the idea behind it was that to create basically a new boogeyman, essentially, a monster. And someone came up with, or multiple people came up with the idea of Slenderman, and throughout the years, and just 5 short years really, they added to this story, they added to the mythos, they created new scenarios for him, they like, all these people can basically take the legend and they can mess around with whatever they want, because it's not like Slenderman's copyrighted or anything. It's very different from the way it was back in the day with, these kind of movies. Not anyone could just make a story about, Freddy Krueger, that character's trademark. But Slenderman, hey, if you want to make a certain story about Slenderman and how your friend was, murdered by him, or how a child was kidnapped, you make a YouTube video about it, it's fine, it's cool. And it became somewhat of a popular internet meme for a number of years. But this last year, it's becoming a little bit more troubling because we've had some issues with Slenderman in that he has apparently has influenced small children to commit terrible acts upon their family and friends.
Who is Slenderman? 2 girls in Wisconsin are saying they repeatedly stabbed a classmate in the woods to please this fictional horror character. I'm sure we have all heard at this point, back in June, the situation with the 2 12-year-old girls in Wisconsin that stabbed their classmate 19 motherfucking times
to meet Slenderman and to go live with him out in his shack in the middle of the Wisconsin woods. And I'm not here to talk about that. I'm not here to talk about all the situations with, you know, the people that have, you know, there was a girl that burned her house down apparently because of Slenderman. I'm not here to talk about that because you could easily just say, oh, that's not because of Slenderman that they did this. These girls were already kind of mentally unstable, and even if Slenderman didn't exist, they could have blamed it on some other kind of internet boogeyman, and they still would have committed those actions or whatever. That's not what I'm here to talk about, though. But what I'm here to talk about is that because the media reported about Slenderman during these crimes with these children, it transcended from just a simple internet meme. At least in America, it's not like that anymore. Everybody now knows who Slenderman is. Or very nearly everyone knows who Slenderman is now. It's not some, you know, obscure thing on the internet that you mention and it's just like, who the hell's Slenderman? It's something that you mention in a casual conversation with any of your friends, regardless of age, and at least one of them is going to be able to be like, oh yeah, that's that internet thing that apparently those girls stabbed that person over or something, and they're going to know who it is. The thing that I realized when I realized this transition was my dad. My dad is 56 years old, and if he could not use the internet for the rest of his life, he would die perfectly content. The internet's not a big part of his life. He doesn't use it that often for anything. And so, of course, you know, I'm doing my YouTube shit here. He has no idea how this YouTube stuff works. You know, you can mention any popular internet celebrity. He's not going to know who they are. But then I go down to see him one day, and he says to me, hey, Matthew, you hear about this Slenderman guy? Like, what is he? And then I started thinking like, oh my god, wow, my dad just mentioned Slenderman. And then I had to figure out an idea how do I describe a creepypasta to my dad? And I basically told him that, okay, Dad, remember how like when you're a kid and you were hanging out with your friends like around a campfire or something and you tell ghost stories? And he'd be like, yeah. I'm like, okay, the internet has a version of that. It's called creepypasta. Except instead of where, you know, you just tell the scary story and it lingers a little bit, and you maybe talk about it a little bit, with the internet, it kind of explodes outwards. It's something that can literally permeate all forms of social media on the internet. And it certainly has, especially with these crimes with these girls. And, you know, I was going to try to sit down here right now and tell you guys a horror story. You know, I was like I did like a couple years back. I told you guys a horror story. I'm thinking it's October. Tell you guys a little story. And I was thinking about stuff, and I was looking on the internet trying to come up with the ideas. And you know, I kept circling back to Slenderman in some way. And I started thinking like, this is no longer just kind of fun. This is really kind of scary, because imagine if I did tell you guys a horror story right now where I invented a monster that just off the top of my head, you know, like I just created a boogeyman, and, you know, I told the story, and then somebody out there got really afraid of this story, and then a couple, you know, weeks from now I hear a news story where a girl was stabbed because of the monster that I created. The person wanted to meet him, of the story that I just made up. Wouldn't that be kind of fucked up? Wouldn't you be like, oh, what the hell? You know, I just created it. It wasn't supposed to go down like that. And that's exactly what happened with Slenderman. You know, my dad asked me the question, like, well, who invented him? And I'm like, well, it doesn't have to necessarily be one guy, but let's say for a second it was. Let's say there's just one guy out there that came up with the concept of Slenderman. You know, I can't imagine how he feels after learning of the events that transpired in Wisconsin and in the situation with the girl, like, burning down her family's house. You know, a monster that he created or helped create and is now being blamed for this action. You know, and that's really scary. That's the real horror story right there. You don't need me to tell you something about like, oh, there was a hook on his hand. You know, this is actually legitimately scary. Because let me tell you, like, if I were to like wake up tomorrow and I found out in the news that somebody put on a you know, those full body color suits sort of thing, like if they put on a full body color suit that was white and then put on a suit and tie and then committed like a murder or something, I would be terrified, but I wouldn't be surprised by it. I honestly wouldn't be the way that that's going. And I'm not here to, you know, blame the internet. I'm not here to be like, you know, this is where our society's going. I'm just here to describe to you how impactful this shit can be at the end of the day to people. Because Slenderman didn't even exist prior to 2009. He is a new creation for the internet and for horror in general. And you know, we already have girls that apparently, you know, they're 12 years old, right? So Slenderman came into existence in 2009, so they were born in 2002. So by the time Slenderman became popular, he was only like, well, or even created, not necessarily popular, they were only, what, like 6, 7, 8 years old? You know, around that time frame. And, you know, they're not going to look at that and be like, oh, this was just an internet meme that was created last Tuesday. They're going to read about this guy, and I guess they're going to consider him being real. You know, and that is really kind of messed up. But hey, that's the situation that we're in right now. So, anyway, yeah, just, next time you read any kind of creepypasta or something on the internet, just be wary. You know, we might actually have like a Jeff the Killer in the future. You know, this is the way it's going. But anyway, yeah. Happy October.